The year when I had the purest hatred for Dodson was the year I learned that he had been in love with his sister-in-law for 10 years. And he found my diary in which I confessed my secret crush on his elder brother. As a result, on the way to get a divorce, we both accidentally died on the spot and became a pair of withered twin lotus flowers in the underworld, loathing each other when we looked at one another. He bribed the hell messengers every day to convey a message to his elder brother, asking him to dig up my grave so that I would become a wandering ghost, in case I was reincarnated and brought disaster to the world. And I harassed my best friend every night, asking her to burn more paper money for me. I wanted to spend a lot of money to send Dodson to the 18th level of hell, so that he could never be reincarnated. Seeing that the hall of the King of Hell was turned upside down by the two of us, the King of Hell let out a roar, and we both fainted. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day when Dodson and I were locked in the gym. I saw Dodson, whose face was flushed due to being drugged, reaching out his hand to me for help, but there was clearly a hint of disgust in his eyes, which made me furious. I raised my foot and kicked at the tender bamboo shoots between the young man's legs. During the general cleaning, I found Dodson's mobile phone hidden under his bed, as if he was sure that I couldn't find it. He didn't even set a password. As soon as I opened it, what caught my eye was the wedding photo of Macy and Cedric, but Dodson had cropped out his elder brother. The woman was smiling like a flower, and the happiness almost overflowed from the screen. The photo album was full of her photos, dating back to high school at the earliest, and the most recent one was a profile photo of her that Dodson secretly took at a family gathering last week. The time span was as long as 10 years. I was burning with anger and threw the mobile phone at Dodson, who was sorting out the waste in the storage room. Dodson, you've been thinking about your sister-in-law for 10 years. Aren't you disgusting? Dodson had his back to me. In the past, he would have spoken harshly to me, but now he remained indifferent even though he was hit by the phone. I sneered. What? Are you too guilty to speak? Since you like Macy, why did you come to provoke me in the first place? As if stimulated by a certain word, Dodson turned around, and his eyes were as cold as an ice cellar. Only then did I see the notebook in his hand. It was the diary that I had forgotten in the storage room. He held it up and shook it, and his tone suddenly rose. I'm disgusting? Isn't it a shameful thing for you to have been secretly in love with my elder brother for so many years? After saying that, Dodson stared at my secret love diary and seemed to think of something. Then he grinned. No wonder every time we went to have a meal with my elder brother, you always dawdled in the cloakroom for a long time. So you were thinking about how to dress up to seduce your brother-in-law. I'm telling you, no matter how you dress up, you can't compare to Macy. You're not even as good as a single hair of hers. Dodson vented out the words that he had accumulated deep in his heart for years in a fit of rage. It was as if I had ruined his whole life. The thing I regret most now is that in order to fulfill my elder brother and Macy back then, I wronged myself to pursue you and finally married such a useless thing like you. You're a jinx. You killed your mother. And you also want to make die of anger my mother. If I could have another chance to choose, I would definitely pursue the person I really like. I was so angry, and I picked up the fruit knife beside me. You have so much to say. I'll make you shut up forever. The consequence was that Dodson did shut up, and so did I. The sound of the police siren pierced the night sky, and the rain penetrated my body. Yes, I was already dead. I floated in the air and watched as my body, which looked terribly dead, was carried onto a stretcher. Dodson's mother threw herself on Dodson's body and cried until she almost fainted. Macy nestled in Cedric's arms and sobbed, seemingly frightened by the terrifying scene. Cedric, with a face that was 9 points similar to Dodson's, only briefly glanced at the body of his twin brother. Instead, he stared at me, who was covered with a white cloth and left behind by everyone, and didn't take back his gaze until the car door closed. An hour ago, because of the mobile phone and the diary, the conflict between Dodson and me completely broke out. We both decided that this marriage could no longer continue. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, we still used the coldest words to attack each other's weakest points. Until the dazzling high beams suddenly shone from the opposite side. Dodson violently turned the steering wheel, But it was still inevitable that there was a mess of broken glass and the smell of gasoline left on the ground. When our marriage came to an end, we were buried together forever. Perhaps because we were like sworn enemies tied together forever. Dodson and I still couldn't stay quiet in the underworld. Dodson had a big hole in his head, and his brain matter kept dripping. Even in the underworld, he still had his young master's temper. He knocked over the mang po soup in front of him and stubbornly refused to drink it. No way. Unless you promise me not to let Nina drink it. A person like her doesn't deserve to be reincarnated. Granny Meng's facial features were wrinkled into a ball, and her hesitation was clearly visible. The dead people all rushed to drink the soup as soon as possible. Cross the bridge. And it was convenient for them to be reincarnated and choose a good family as soon as possible. However, this couple who had been given money by their living family members to jump the queue in the mortal world just did the opposite. Well, who will still indulge your young master's temper here? You don't want to be reincarnated, right? I'll send you to hell right away and make sure you can never be reincarnated. I got into a feud with Dodson to see who could send the other to hell first. He used the money burned for him by the Dodson family members every day to bribe the hell messengers, wanting to convey a message to his elder brother to dig up my grave, so as to prevent me from being reincarnated and causing trouble in the world. And I harassed my best friend Smile every night, asking her to burn more paper money for me. I wanted to spend a lot of money to send Dodson to the 18th level of hell, so that he could never be reincarnated. The hell messengers had been working in the underworld for thousands of years. And in these few days, they made a fortune because of us too. Just as they were grinning from ear to ear, the king of hell learned about this matter. When we were brought to the hall of the king of hell, Dodson was complaining about my evil deeds to the king of hell. He said that I was suspicious and jealous by nature and full of malice towards the women who appeared around him. He said that I disrespected my elders. Not only did I deliberately knock over the tonic soup that my mother-in-law had cooked for more than 10 hours, but I also made a scene at the family banquet. Finally, he let out a low sigh. He exaggerated and said that I even wanted to kill someone with a knife because of old scores. If Dodson could pretend to be pitiful to win sympathy, couldn't I do the same? I held on to the king of hell's leg. My eyes were slightly red, and my voice was just the right amount of choked up. Your Majesty, please see clearly. Dodson has been having an affair after marriage and has ignored his lawful wife. My mother-in-law saw that I had no support from my natal family, and repeatedly played tricks on me behind my back. Dodson not only didn't deal with the conflict between me and my mother-in-law, but he even had feelings for his sister-in-law for 10 years. Dodson and I took turns speaking. The king of hell's head was buzzing from listening. He frowned and said, "Every family has its own hard-to-read scriptures. Since you're both unwilling to accept the outcome, I'll give you a chance to choose." With just one roar from him, we both fainted. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Dodson with a flushed face. I was reborn back to the day when I was in the second year of senior high school and was locked in the gym with Dodson. On this day in the previous life, Dodson was drugged, and we were only discovered by the administrator the next day. Since then, there were all kinds of rumors. I was abandoned and by my family, and spurned by my classmates. And Dodson confessed his love to me and promised to take responsibility for me. I just thought it was the impulse of a young man on a whim. It wasn't until I was kicked out of my home that Dodson appeared in front of me in the rain. He took me back to the Dodson family, and Dodson's mother punished him to kneel in the family ancestral hall. The leather whip hit him heavily, but he held back and didn't make a sound. Later, those crisscrossing whip marks accompanied Dodds and all the way to the underworld. At that moment, I only felt that the hand he held still retained some warmth. The fragrance of the osmanthus outside the window wafted into my heart and finally covered up the smell of mint from that year. Later, Dodson had a high fever, and I took care of him day and night for 3 days. The Dodson family tacitly approved of my identity as Dodson's Fei and Qi. The feelings we had in the past were real, but it didn't prevent us from finally becoming a pair of withered twin lotus flowers, loathing each other when we looked at each other. Just one look, and I knew that Dodson was also reborn. Because even though he was unbearably hot and restless after being drugged, there was clearly a hint of disgust in his eyes when he looked at me. It made me feel a surge of nameless anger. Nina. Save me. Dodson reached out his hand to me for help. The corners of my mouth curved into a gentle smile. And I walked over. I raised my foot and kicked at the tender bamboo shoots between the young man's legs. After a scream, I confirmed again that the door was locked and couldn't be opened. I could only turn my gaze to the glass window hanging high on the wall. Although the window was narrow, it was wide enough for me to crawl out. I ignored Dodson, who was holding his vital parts and rolling on the ground. His face had turned from red to blue. I rummaged through the equipment in the gym and finally found several iron flying discs in the corner. I found a cushion and put it under my feet. When I broke the window with the flying disc and climbed out, I happened to see Cedric on one side of the teaching building. My eyes darkened, and I climbed out of the gym in a sorry state. In the previous life, no one answered even when I shouted my lungs out, but now I found that Cedric had been nearby all the time. Hurry up and find someone to let your brother out, or you'll have an extra sister in the future. I ignored Cedric's stunned expression, went back to the classroom to get my bag, and rushed to my part-time job. I heard that Dodson was sent to the hospital and the effect of the drug was relieved. He didn't relax until the doctors said that his functions were normal. Dodson was eager to be discharged from the hospital, but the Dodson family was afraid that he would have sequelae, so they forced him to stay in the hospital for a few more days. When he returned to school, Dodson treated me like a transparent person, and he himself became Macy's little follower. He followed her around every day, asking about her well-being, trying to establish an infatuated persona for himself. I heard that Macy and Cedric were going to be selected to participate in the physics competition. Dodson became anxious and immediately found a tutor for tutoring. He was afraid that it would leave time for the two of them to be alone. He appeared beside Macy fewer times for several consecutive weeks. Dodson originally thought that he could successfully join the group of three, but unexpectedly, it was still just the two of them in this competition. However, Macy's position was replaced by me. When the news first came out, the news that Macy was crying in the bathroom spread throughout the class. Unexpectedly, Dodson wasn't in a hurry, but others were. Cedric asked to meet me at the back gate of the school through a small note. When I arrived as promised, he didn't beat around the bush and directly stated his purpose. Nina doesn't need this competition quota. It's better to leave this opportunity to someone who needs it more. Someone who needs it more? Do you mean Macy? I immediately understood what he meant. So I stared intently into Cedric's amber eyes and spoke. I really did have feelings for Cedric before. In the year when I liked Cedric the most, the double pressure from my studies and family almost made me unable to breathe. After countless unsuccessful job hunts, I turned to my best friend. Smile. She was very straightforward and directly asked me to work part-time at her family's restaurant. That summer was incredibly hot. The air was so sticky that I could hardly breathe. In order to save money for my good-for-nothing younger brother to go to school, my father tore up my high school admission notice. When I tried to run away from home, my father would find me and beat me up. The third time I was caught, my leg seemed to be on the verge of breaking. The pain prevented me from running away, and I could only let the ceramic bowl smash on my forehead. You useless girl. How dare you run away? I'll break your leg today and marry you off, so you can honestly get the bride price for your brother. I thought I was doomed. Unexpectedly, my usually weak mother suddenly hugged my father's leg and cried out for me to run. I didn't know what my father would do to her, but I knew that once I left this home this time, I would never be able to come back. After working part-time for 2 months during the summer vacation, I barely managed to scrape together enough tuition fees. But somehow, I offended the well-known gang of school bullies in high school. They cornered me at the entrance of an alley near the school, and the lining of my school uniform had been torn to pieces. The leader of the bullies held my student ID card and looked down on me, saying, "You're Nina? You've learned to seduce men just after starting high school?" I haven't. I tried to get my student ID card back but was kicked to the ground again. I saw that all of Cedric's scratch paper in your class was filled with the initials of your name last time. Are you still pretending? She took out a crumpled piece of scratch paper, which was almost filled with SNN. Then the bully suddenly squatted down, grabbed my collar, and tried to tear off my coat. I held on tightly. Just as the bully's companions were about to come forward to help, a tall figure stood at the entrance of the alley against the light. "Bullying classmates? Do you want to be expelled?" A deep voice sounded. And Cedric took off his school uniform coat and draped it over me. The faint mint smell surrounded me. The bullies were so scared that they dropped my stew and a card and ran away. When a beam of light suddenly appears in a dark world, people always think it's salvation. Later, I secretly compared Cedric's handwriting. And it was completely different from the one on the bully's piece of paper. Plus, we had no more contact. And there were rumors from time to time in the school about Macy and Cedric, so I didn't take the bully's words to heart anymore. Besides writing a secret crush diary every day, I just deeply hid that throbbing in my heart. But now Cedric is like he's running around naked in front of me. I exposed him without mercy. "Did your Dodson family make their fortune with Lala move? You're all so good at pretending. If you like me, why did you provoke Macy?" There was a crack in the boy's usual false gentle mask. Before I could say anything more, Cedric strode away. Almost seamlessly, Dodson appeared again. Dodson had a gloomy face. "Do you want to bully Macy for 2 lifetimes even though you've led 2 lifetimes? You know how strong the control of her family is over her studies. Why do you have to compete with her for this quota? You've studied it twice already. Is this fair to Macy? Dodson, have you lost your mind? I don't remember studying it twice." Hearing this, Dodson seemed to recall some unpleasant memories and his eyes dodged. "I neither stole nor robbed. This is the result of my own efforts. What right do you have to criticize me?" I looked at him coldly. In my previous life, the rumors and gossips led to my expulsion, and my school days ended completely. I used to be a top student with excellent grades, but in the end, I was still trapped in that small world. In this life, I studied desperately and greedily absorbed knowledge. While Dodson was acting coquette sly and pestering Macy to send her home, I was studying. Even during the breaks of my part-time job for survival, I huddled in the back kitchen to study. Like a flower bud on barren land, I squeezed out all the nutrients just to bloom the most vibrant flower. The quota for the competition is what I deserve. And I won't give it up for anyone. If Macy wants it, she can come and fight for it herself. She doesn't need you to play the hero. After saying this, I left Dodson, who had nothing to refute, and walked away. And he could only rage impotently at my back. During the preparation period for the competition, I didn't have time for my part-time job. To avoid going hungry, I asked for leave from 2 afternoon self-study classes to work part-time. Just as I finished cleaning a table, I heard the sound of the door opening. I instinctively said welcome. But when I turned around, I saw my mother's shocked gaze and the contemptuous expression of the boy beside her. You at. Roy put one hand on his waist and pointed at me with the other. "Come and pour water for the guests quickly." I stared blankly at my mother for a long time. It wasn't until I saw that she had many fewer wrinkles than in my memory that I came to my senses. In my previous life, not long after I entered the Dodson family, my mother committed suicide by jumping off a building. My father thought it was embarrassing and didn't even let me go home to see my mother for the last time. I touched my slightly moist eyes. And suddenly my thigh hurt. Roy kicked me impatiently. "What are you dawdling for? What kind of waiter did your restaurant hire? I want to see your boss. I want to file a complaint." His voice was so loud that it almost shattered the glass. The few remaining customers at the tables looked over when they heard the commotion. I grabbed his ear without mercy. "Your parents may not be willing to beat you, but I won't spoil you." Roy grimaced in pain and waved his arms trying to scratch me. But he hadn't reached puberty yet. And he was half a head shorter than me. So he was no match for me. "He's your younger brother. So what if he's my brother? If we don't educate him now, we'll have plenty of time to cry when he gets into trouble in the future." My mother's face turned red with anxiety as she tried to pull us apart. But I just wouldn't let go because Roy started kicking me again. The strength of a boy was great. And the pain welled up like a tide. I involuntarily curled up my body. My mother glared angrily, raised her hand, and slapped me hard. "Do you have any shame left? Bullying your younger brother in public. You brought shame to our family." In the end, Smile came out from the back kitchen to mediate. Dante. Our garlic fried fish and braised pork are both very good. You can take them home and have a taste. I sat in the corner and watched Smile send my mother and Roy to the door. Before Roy left, he gave me the middle finger, as if he was showing off that he was the winner. My mother's slap was quite hard. She scratched a gash on my cheek with her fingernail. The burning pain made me curse inwardly. Why am I still in such a mess in this new life? Looking down at the ordo-ph that Smile stuffed into my hand, suddenly a shadow fell. Have you always had a bad relationship with your parents? Dodson picked up the ordo-ph in my hand and wanted to apply the medicine for me. But I dodged. Don't let your first love see this and get the wrong idea. Or you'll blame me in the end when you can't catch up with her. I snatched back the ordo-ph, dealt with the wound briefly, and then continued to serve the new customers. Dodson wasn't annoyed either. He found a table and sat down on his own. After I finished my work, he finally spoke. Is that your younger brother? Why have I never met him in all these years since we got married? According to the timeline of our previous life, your mother should have already. Is it the butterfly effect? He was like a mosquito, buzzing in my ear. I was a bit impatient. Why didn't I see you talk so much before? If you're not going to eat, then get lost. Then a customer entered the store, and I chased Dodson away. I latched onto the big tree that is the Dodson family, and everyone wants a share of the benefits. How could Roy miss this opportunity? Just after Dodson and I got back from our honeymoon, Dodson went to the studio to meet a client. When I got home and got out of the car, I saw Roy, who had been waiting at the entrance of the apartment for a long time. He looked a lot like my father when he was young, but he was more of a rascal than my father. Sister? Your brother has been waiting for you for a long time. Our family is short of money recently. Lend me some money, please. When he saw that I was reluctant, Roy said he would go to his brother-in-law. That was the first time I compromised with him. In an already unequal marital relationship, I didn't want Dodson to see the unsightly side of my original family. Until later, Roy became even more excessive and almost emptied all my savings from my work. When I ran out of money, he threatened to go to Dodson again. In the end, I reported Roy for secretly engaging in gray industries. I sent him to prison with my own hands. But the original family is like an endless and damp plum rain, leaving a lifetime of dampness. Before the preparation period for the competition started, I had saved enough money. But it wasn't just me and Cedric who entered the competition group. Macy and Dodson were also in it. At the end of the first day of the competition course, Macy took a lunch box and went to find Cedric. Thank you for introducing the competition teacher to me and giving me the opportunity to enter the competition class again. Otherwise, my parents might punish me again. It's okay. Coincidentally, Dodson also wanted to join. So I just introduced the teacher to both of you at the same time. Cedric's eyes were gentle, and he smiled like a spring breeze. Just as the two of them sat down at the table behind me, Dodson suddenly squeezed in between them. My grades are not good. You guys have to help me a lot. Dodson opened his lunch box and stared at Macy with a smile. But his peripheral vision was actually looking at me behind him. I took a big bite of the steamed bun. Then I carried the free egg soup I got from the cafeteria and squeezed in between Dodson and Cedric. I unceremoniously took a few mouthfuls of the food in Dodson's lunch box. We're all from the same class. We should help each other. Suddenly, the three of them had different expressions. Macy felt that the atmosphere was strange, but she didn't say anything. Dodson was glaring at me as he saw that I had eaten the last sea cucumber. Only Cedric. Ever since I exposed him that day, he had been avoiding me and getting closer and closer to Macy. The study pressure in the competition class was very high. Seeing that Macy was struggling to keep up with the courses, Dodson tried every means to make her happy and relieve her stress. My greatest hobby besides studying was to constantly interfere in the two-person world of Macy and Cedric. When Cedric tutored Macy in the study room after class, I secretly reported to the director that there were young couples dating in the study room. When Macy gave Cedric breakfast, I would pretend to be pitiful and stare longingly at the steamed buns she hadn't given out yet. Then my stomach would growl. And finally all of his breakfast ended up in my stomach. And later on, when the two of them had a meal together, I would squeeze in between them with Dodson. It was as if we had reached some kind of consensus. The last simulation before the competition exam, Cedric still maintained the first place. And I ranked second with a difference of 0.5 points. The top two had the qualification for direct admission. And being admitted to Tingshui University or Peking University was almost within my grasp. But Macy's grades were on the edge of the direct admission score line of last year. And Dodson, because he didn't focus on his studies, was already at the bottom of the class. The night before the exam, Cedric gave me another small note, asking me to meet him at the back gate of the school at night, when having lunch in the afternoon. The security office said there was a call for me. The moment I answered the phone, my mother's flustered voice came, "Nina, go back to the dormitory quickly after class tonight and don't go anywhere." Before I could say anything, the phone was hung up immediately. After class, Cedric unprecedentedly didn't wait for Macy and was the first to leave the classroom. When I followed him to the corner of the teaching building, he suddenly disappeared. I looked around but couldn't see his figure. Just as I was about to turn around and leave, suddenly there was a pain in the back of my neck, and a black shadow appeared in front of my eyes. I fell to the ground. When I woke up again, I saw that the messy room was piled with my junior high school books. This was the storage room of my home. This actually made me heave a sigh of relief. If Cedric had joined forces with others to deal with me, then I might not be able to escape. But this was my home. My hands and feet weren't tied up. I stood up and tried to turn the door lock. I found that it was indeed locked. Hearing the sound of the doorknob turning, Jack's threat came from outside the door. "Don't think about running out. Dad will take you to meet someone later." I'm not going to run. Looking at the window in the utility room, I took out a stool. I broke the window with the leg of the stool. Hearing the sound, Jack immediately walked to the utility room and opened the door. Seeing the broken window, he cursed, "If I catch you, you little brat, I'll break your legs." I hid behind the door, raised the stool high, and smashed it hard on his head. Jack cursed in pain, covering the back of his head but not being knocked unconscious. I kicked him and ran outside, but was hit by the books he threw over. As I fell to the ground, a sharp pain shot through my knee. Behind me came a devilish voice. Jack laughed, panting heavily, "You've used all your petty tricks on me. I'm telling you, your younger brother is going to study abroad. And Dad is short of money. Since you're about to come of age, it's better to find someone to marry early and make some contribution to the family." He wanted to sell me for money, but I definitely wouldn't let him. I've already died once. I might as well die again if necessary. With Roy's character, if you send him abroad, you're pushing him towards death. He's the only descendant of our Jack family. What's wrong with me wanting to support the next generation? He can't get into high school now, and going abroad is the only way out for him. Jack stood there watching me struggling to crawl outside, like a hunter with certain skills enjoying the pleasure of torturing and killing his prey. The doorbell rang. Jack's face lit up with joy. He picked up the rope beside the sofa and tied my hands and feet. Then he stuffed a rag into my mouth, after tidying up his clothes. His smile froze when he opened the door and saw the visitors clearly. "Is this Nina's home? We're here to find Nina. She has an exam today," Dodson said as he poked his head into the house, but was blocked by Jack's body. "Nina doesn't live at home anymore. You should go to the school to find her." "That's not right. Mrs. Lee, I clearly heard her say that she was going home last night." Dodson turned his gaze to Mrs. Lee behind him. Uncle, are you the only one at home now?" I was lying on the floor of the living room, kicking the table hard, trying to kick the water cup on the edge of the table down. Jack was already getting impatient. "Yes, having fulfilled my obsession. I'm the only one at home now. I've already said she's not here. Do you still want to break into a private house?" The water cup was already on the edge, and the water in the cup was sloshing and splashing on my face. Seeing that Dodson and the others were about to be driven away by Jack, I gave a hard kick. The water cup fell to the ground and shattered. Hearing the noise, Mrs. Lee took the opportunity to push Jack aside when he wasn't prepared. Dodson ran into the house and saw me lying on the ground at a glance. He quickly untied the ropes for me and loudly told Mrs. Lee that I was here. Mrs. Lee's expression became serious. Jack, what you're doing will ruin Nina's whole life. My eyes were filled with tears. Teacher, I beg you to take me away. I want to go to college. I don't want to get married now. Mrs. Lee looked at the injury on my leg with full of pity. Dodson's face was deathly pale, and there was a certain indescribable emotion between his eyebrows, like regret after suddenly understanding something. Under the threat of Mrs. Lee and Dodson calling the police, Jack had to let them take me away. I successfully caught up with the admission time for the competition and completed the most important exam in my life. During the time waiting for the results, I still worked in Smile's family store. Jack disappeared without a trace for a while. Dodson, knowing that he couldn't be directly admitted, didn't hurry back to school to review for the college entrance examination. Instead, he ran to the store every now and then. But he didn't talk to me either. He just sat quietly at the table in the corner. And he could sit there for an afternoon. There was one day left before the results were announced. After I saw off the last table of guests, I saw that Dodson was still sitting there. I brought him a glass of water. Aren't you curious why I went to your home with Mrs. Lee to find you? Dodson looked up at me. I didn't say anything. And he continued. It was Macy. She saw you go to the back gate with my brother that night. And then you were knocked unconscious and taken away by a middle-aged man. When she came to me, she was almost crying in a hurry. But she was confined at home and couldn't get out. So she could only ask me to save you. So you want to tell me how gentle and kind Macy is? I interrupted him. I knew that Macy had seen everything. It was because I saw Macy following me that night that I dared to go to the back gate to find Cedric. I was gambling, betting that Macy would help me just like in the previous life. When Roy came to me for the last time, I had no money left. He threatened to go to Dodson and let him know that Nina's family owed a huge debt and was waiting for him to pay it off. Macy witnessed everything at the door. That was the first time I saw disgust on her beautiful face. Macy gave Roy a sum of money and told him to get lost. Then she left in silence. She gave me the self-esteem that I had been desperately trying to hide. In this game, Macy had never been wrong. She was gentle and kind. She deserved all the good things in the world. When I found out that Cedric, who seemed to love his wife dearly on the surface, had secretly hidden a portrait of me, and the women he kept outside were as numerous as those in a harem, and they all had something in common, they all somewhat resembled me. Suddenly, I felt that their marriage was very disgusting. Macy was sincere towards him. But why should her sincerity be let down? With the help of Macy's family, he obtained the right to inherit the Dodson family and was able to do whatever he wanted and get everything he desired, especially when they had a quarrel not long after. One of Cedric's mistresses had the audacity to come in front of Macy and ask her to step down. Macy's family business was gradually annexed by the Dodson family, and there was no chance for her to turn things around. I wanted to tear off his mask, but before I could do anything, I was once again confused by Dodson's love for Macy. In this life, I deliberately disrupted Cedric's plan to get close to Macy. She shouldn't fall into the gentle whirlpool of that devil. Cedric. Dodson was a bit anxious. And his face even turned red. Why is your father so heartless? Just because your younger brother is going to study abroad. He wants to sell you. So you've never taken me to meet your family because they've gone crazy for money, right? The boy was eager to get a positive answer from me. Dodson. Stop dwelling on the past, I said coldly. My family is planning to send me to study abroad, and I don't want to leave with regrets. Dodson lowered his head, looking a bit disappointed. Don't you understand? You clearly had the opportunity to stay in the country with Cedric. Why do you insist on going abroad? These words woke me up like a dream. Dodson suddenly raised his head, and his eyes were extremely clear. He ran out of the store and left without looking back. The competition results came out. Cedric and I tied for first place and obtained the qualification for direct admission to Tsinghua University or Peking University. To motivate the students A school asked us to give a speech on stage as excellent examples. While waiting for our turn, Cedric stood beside me, still looking like an elegant young master. I sneered, "I'm really sorry to disappoint you. I've ruined your good opportunity to promote your relationship with Macy." Then I changed the subject and stared at him intently. "Why don't you take a look at me? I also like classmate Cedric very much." There was a bit of panic in Cedric's usually calm eyes. After calming down, he said inferiorly, "Nina, don't get carried away. Hold on to your chance to change your destiny against all odds." "Cedric, the biggest flaw in you is that you're too self-righteous. Do you really think you can control the fate of others?" I paused, looked at the classmates in the audience, and then turned to him with a sneer on my lips. "You want to send Dodson abroad to study and accumulate resources at home to kick him out of the final round of the inheritance competition for the Dodson family. No way." Cedric took advantage of Dodson's crush on Macy to persuade his parents to send him to the competition class that wasn't suitable for him. By comparing Dodson with himself, he not only made Macy have a better impression of him but also made Dodson miss the opportunity to improve his scores in the college entrance examination. Taking this chance, he made his parents come up with the idea of sending Dodson abroad to study, completely kicking out the youngest son, who had always been doted on by Dodson's parents, from the country. By the time Dodson returned home after finishing his studies abroad, Cedric would have already established a firm foothold in the Dodson family and wouldn't give Dodson any chance. Hearing this, Cedric frowned tightly, following my gaze. His eyes widened in shock. Dodson, who should have been at the study abroad agency, was standing among the crowd. The tall and straight young man looked lazy. He casually raised his head and met Cedric's gaze, then gave him a provocative smile and deliberately waved to greet him. Leaning against the broadcasting platform with my hand resting on it, I saw Cedric clench his fist in anger and tremble slightly. How could my parents possibly agree to let him stay in the country? Do you think they would let him bring shame to the Dodson family by getting into a junior college? Cedric, you always looked down on others so much because you were jealous that your parents favored Dodson. You've been buttering Dodson up since you were a kid, just waiting for the day to make him fall from the clouds and be completely destroyed. But do you really think he's stupid? He just cherished the brotherly bond between you. He didn't believe that you would harm him, although his grades are not as good as yours. He told his father about his business startup plan last night, and his father agreed to let him stay in the country and was willing to invest in his business." Cedric threw the speech script on the ground, his voice full of excitement. "Why can that good-for-nothing get everything I want without any effort?" After saying that, his eyes flashed with a crazy flame as he looked at me. I even gave Jack some advice. But why is he still so stupid that he can't even deal with a little girl? You lowly people are just born to cause trouble for others. There were rapid footsteps outside the door. The teacher in charge of the broadcasting facilities opened the door in a panic, rushed to the broadcasting platform, and turned off the switch. The director followed and came in with a serious expression. "Student Cedric, as a student recommended for admission in our school, how could you say such vicious words in front of all the students? This speech was live-streamed throughout. Once the recording is leaked, your competition qualification will be cancelled." When Cedric learned that the words he had just said had been broadcasted, his face changed drastically. Seeing me so calm, he immediately ran over and grabbed my neck. His hands kept exerting force, and his eyes were full of hatred. "Nina, the biggest mistake I made in my life was falling for you in the first year of high school. I shouldn't have been soft-hearted because of my feelings. I should have killed you." The teacher controlled him in time, and I looked at him coldly. "You reap what you sow, Cedric. You have to pay the price for what you've done." Before Cedric was taken away, he was still saying, "Just you wait. I'll make you lose everything you want to protect." I heard that Cedric went crazy soon after being taken home by the Dodson family and was sent to a mental hospital. Dodson was in low spirits for a long time because of this. Even when Smile brought Macy to the store to play, Dodson just greeted them warily. After realizing that Cedric only wanted to use her to maximize his own interests, Macy immediately shattered the beautiful filter she had had for him over the years. She decided to give up on applying to Tingshui University and Peking University, which she had agreed with Cedric, and instead chose HAI University, which had her favorite top-notch medical major. After I finally relaxed for a while, I suddenly received a call from my neighbor. Nina, come back quickly. Your mother is going to jump off the building. When we arrived, my mother was standing on the edge of the roof, and Jack and Roy didn't dare to get close behind her. You want to sell me for money, don't you? Fine. Let's see if they're willing to pay for a corpse. My mother's shrill voice echoed on the roof. Are you still my mother? I'm just short of this little money to study abroad. Why can't you just let me go? You're as selfish as Nina. You've ruined my life. Roy was still blaming my mother. Jack still tried to persuade her. Honey, we're doing this for our son. That family just wants you to give them a son. And they'll give us 200 yuan. What's there for you to be so upset about? When I heard this, I felt as if my blood was rushing backward straight to my brain. Mom, come down first. I'll protect you. And they won't dare to touch you. Smile and Macy were also trying to persuade her. When my mother heard my voice, she burst into tears. Nina, it's Mom who's sorry for you. Mom didn't protect you well. If there's an afterlife, you must never be Mom's child again. The firefighters had already set up the rescue facilities. He gave me a look, and I understood immediately. I firmly said, in the next life, I won't be your child. You can be my child. And I'll protect you. Suddenly, my mother covered her face and cried. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the firefighter emerged from the corner, hugged my mother, and brought her to the ground. When I ran over and hugged her, the police brought by Dodson also arrived and controlled Jack and Roy. They were taken back to the police station on suspicion of human trafficking and campus violence. My mother nestled in my arms and cried, constantly saying sorry. You haven't done anything to be sorry for me. You've already saved me. It was your call that night that saved my life. My mother said she had tried to stop Jack from selling me to an old man, but Jack bought a rope and insisted on tying me back. She couldn't fight against the two of them, so she could only call me to tip me off. I stroked her head. Don't be afraid. I won't let them out. When I go to college, you can come with me, and I'll take care of you. In my previous life, Jack wanted to sell my mother because of the debt Roy owed. I didn't have the chance to save my mother. In this life, I won't let go of her hand again. Soon after, Jack was sentenced to 30 years in prison for illegal human trafficking, and Roy was sentenced to 10 years in prison for campus bullying. 10 years later, as soon as he was released from prison, he was sent to prison again for intentional provocation. I took my mother to Tingshui University and Peking University and rented a house for her near the school. Later, I switched from physics to study law in graduate school, completed a combined master's and doctoral program, and became a lawyer at a top law firm. One day, after winning another lawsuit, I met Dodson, who was holding a bouquet of roses. At the door, the man was dressed in a suit, exuding the air of an elite. Nina, would you do me the honor of having dinner with me tonight? I heard that the company founded by Dodson monopolized the market as soon as it went public. Demonstrating his extraordinary business acumen, Dodson's father had already handed over the absolute controlling stake of the Dodson family to him. Now, Dodson is the ideal husband that countless socialites dream of. I didn't take the roses but got into the car directly. I already have an appointment tonight. President Dodson. Remember to make an earlier reservation next time. Then I stepped on the gas pedal and disappeared from his sight. Even though I once loved the wrong person, I won't stay for anyone. Because my life should always move forward.